Think about this for a second. Somewhere in the world, a central banker is making a decision that could quietly drain your savings. A company's profits are evaporating, not because of bad sales, but because of invisible weapons wielded by people they will never, ever meet. See, this isn't a war with soldiers and tanks. This is a story about invisible violence, where the casualties are retirement plans and corporate earnings.
Yep, welcome to the world of currency wars. This is a fight that happens on the global financial stage, a silent, ruthless battle for economic dominance that, whether you realize it or not, affects every single one of us. All right, let's get into it and see how this all works.
So here's the game plan for this explainer. We're going to break it down into 6 parts. We'll start with what a currency war actually is, then we'll look at some of history's big warnings. After that, we'll check out the modern weapons, see how your company gets caught in the crossfire, and then, this is the important part, learn the survival playbook. And finally, we'll look at where this whole battle is headed next.
To really wrap our heads around this huge global conflict, let's start with a super simple story. A story that gets right to the heart of the whole issue.
Okay, picture an ancient bazaar. You've got 2 merchants selling the exact same silk. One of them gets a sneaky idea. He secretly melts down his silver coins and mixes in some cheap metal. Now he can offer his silk for what looks like a lower price. His competitor across the way sees all the customers flocking over, panics, and does the exact same thing. Pretty soon, they are both selling more silk than they ever have before. They're crazy busy, but they're also earning less profit. They're working harder, but they're both getting poorer. That right there is a currency war in a nutshell. It's a frantic race to the bottom.
And that's exactly what countries do. It's officially called competitive devaluation. By making your own money cheaper, everything your country sells to the rest of the world suddenly becomes a bargain. It's like putting a giant for sale sign on your entire national economy. The huge problem, of course, is when your neighbor does it and then their neighbor does it, and pretty soon nobody's really winning for very long.
And make no mistake, this is not some new 21st century invention. Oh no, history is just littered with empires and nations that tried to devalue their way to the top. And it almost always ended badly.
You know, what's wild about this is how the pattern just repeats itself. Roman emperors did exactly what our silk merchants did. They mixed cheap metals into their silver coins, which completely shattered public trust and sparked runaway inflation. Then in the 1930s, you had this beggar thy neighbor disaster, where countries desperately devalued one after another, basically trying to export their unemployment. All it did was make the Great Depression even worse for everyone. Then in '71, the Nixon shock was the US just saying, "We're done," and blowing up the whole system. And the Plaza Accord in '85, that was a rare moment of sanity, a coordinated truce to weaken an out-of-control strong dollar and stop a global trade war before it started. It's the same story, just with different characters.
Okay, let's fast forward to today. The goal is still pretty much the same, gain an edge. But the weapons? Well, they've evolved from mixing metals in a furnace to deploying some seriously sophisticated financial tools.
So in the modern arsenal, you've really got 3 main weapons of choice. First up, quantitative easing, or QE. The US Federal Reserve famously used this after the 2008 crisis. It's basically a high-tech way of printing money to juice the economy, and surprise, surprise, a major side effect is a weaker dollar. Then you've got straight-up deliberate devaluation. Think of Japan's Abenomics, where they went all in on aggressively weakening the yen to fight deflation. And finally, there's the managed exchange rate, which was China's signature move for years, keeping the yuan artificially low to cement its position as the world's factory.
This quote from Brazil's finance minister back in 2010 absolutely nailed the feeling at the time. See, the US was deep into QE, and all those newly printed cheap dollars were flooding into emerging markets like Brazil. This fire hose of cash was driving their currencies through the roof and just crushing their own industries. So when Mantica said this, he wasn't just being dramatic. He was firing a warning shot, saying, hey, what you guys call stimulus feels like an economic attack to the rest of us.
Now, I know this can all seem like some high-level abstract game that countries play, but these macroeconomic decisions have very real, sometimes very painful consequences for actual businesses on the ground.
I want you to imagine you're a CFO for a minute. Your company just had a great quarter. You sold $50 million worth of your product. Your team absolutely crushed their targets. But when you look at the final accounting, there's a $4.5 million hole in your revenue.
What on earth happened? There was no factory fire, no product recall. The sales were real. So where did all that money go?
Well, it pretty much vanished into thin air. The culprit has a name: economic exposure. It's what happens when there's a mismatch, when you earn your money in one currency but pay your bills in another. The classic tragic case study here is Laker Airways. They were pioneers in low-cost flights, but they made one single Fatal mistake. All their ticket revenue came in British pounds, but their huge airplane loans were in US dollars. When the pound suddenly collapsed against the dollar, their debt costs basically doubled overnight. And just like that, the company went bankrupt.
So how do you stop your company from becoming another casualty, another Laker Airways? Well, the answer isn't about trying to predict which way a currency is going to go. It's about building a rock-solid defense. Let's walk through the playbook that separates the survivors from the victims.
All right, here are the 5 key moves. Number 1, natural hedging. It's simple. If you get paid in euros, try to pay your bills in euros. Match them up. Number 2, layered hedging. Don't make one big bet on an exchange rate. Hedge little pieces of your exposure over time to get a smoother average rate. 3, multi-currency pooling. Use your own company as an internal bank to manage your different currency needs and avoid paying expensive bank fees. 4, and this one's huge, extreme stress testing. Don't just model a little 5% swing. Ask yourself, what happens if a currency collapses by 30%? Can we survive? And finally, number 5, invest in technology. Modern treasury management systems give you the real-time data you need to react in hours, not weeks.
Okay, for our final section, let's look ahead. Because the battlefield itself is undergoing a massive transformation. The fight is moving beyond just interest rates and press conferences. It's becoming a technological arms race over the very plumbing of global finance.
You see, for decades, the US dollar has been king. But that dominance is now being seriously challenged. The weaponization of financial sanctions, cutting countries off from the dollar system, has pushed many nations to actively hunt for alternatives. You've got economic blocs like BRICS who are building their own systems specifically to bypass the dollar-centric world.
And this slide shows that tech shift perfectly. The old system, SWIFT, is like the snail mail of global finance. It takes days to settle a payment, it bounces between a bunch of intermediary banks, and it's overwhelmingly dependent on the US dollar. The new digital systems like China's Project M-Bridge are a different world. They allow central banks to trade with each other directly, peer-to-peer, settling instantly, using their own brand new digital currencies. This isn't just a faster horse, it's a completely new engine designed from the ground up to reduce reliance on the dollar.
So after all this, what's the big takeaway? It's actually pretty simple. Currencies are always going to rise and fall. Wars will be fought, truces will be made. Trying to guess the next big move is a fool's game. The only winning strategy, whether you're a country or a company, is to stop trying to predict the wind and instead focus all your energy on building a better, stronger ship. In a world of currency wars, the goal isn't really to win. It's to build a system that's resilient enough to survive whatever comes next.